So I remember being about, 16 years old, and just thinking in my room one day, going in one of those teenage thought spirals, that if I wasn't smart enough, and if I didn't have any friends or family someday, and if I couldn't get a job, I would end up homeless. I have a distinct memory of being a teenager and already knowing that was the threat. That was the fate if I wasn't good enough. I could see it with my own eyes in my community. If somehow something was wrong with me, I would end up on the street. So I worked my ass off. I worked so hard all through college. I still do. And I know many of you do too. It gets to feeling like rest itself is a waste of time, and that if we waste time, if we don't use it productively, I could become waste next. Have any of you had thoughts like this? Okay, at least a couple. All right. Our culture treats people, objects, and other life forms as disposable. This is convenient, certainly. It's also wrong. Now, we're all part of this system, and many of us throw things away all the time. The only trash pickup company that comes to my house doesn't do recycling, and in the year that I have been in this place, I haven't taken the time to figure out how to do it myself. What about you all? What do you throw away? Give me some examples. What are common things you throw away? Milk jugs, cereal boxes. What else? Pickle jars, diapers. That's a classic one, right?
Glass, because it's not recyclable.
Glass, right? Because it's not recyclable. Food waste, old markers, tissue. I mean, what am I supposed to keep the tissue? Or the greeting cards. Ooh, sadly, you can't reuse a greeting card, can you? Or a bag full of individually wrapped candies, those delicious Werthers, and you're like, Grandma, how could you? To some extent, these things have to be thrown away. Either they're not recyclable or they're made to be single use. What am I supposed to do with the wrapper to a Werther's after I have eaten this delicious butterscotch? Or our tech, which is made with no way to repair it. So you have to buy a new one, which is called planned obsolescence. Our society is shaped to make throwing things away easy and reusing pretty difficult, because reusing doesn't make a company any money. Y'all may have heard recently that 8,500 dump truck loads worth of contaminated soil was recently removed from the former K-25 lab site here in Oak Ridge. That's great. Nobody wants contaminated soil. It makes sense. But I can't help but wondering, removed where? Where did it go? I saw all these articles talking about removed and disposed of, but they don't talk about, is it going to be processed? Is it going to be treated? Or is it going to be buried somewhere and we just hope for the best? I trust that there are good and smart people working on this, and so I hope and I assume that it is being taken care of well, but none of the articles said what it was done with after it was disposed of. If that soil was just buried somewhere, still contaminated, the water could leak through it and end up in the groundwater. Maybe it won't affect us, but it would still affect someone downstream. We throw things away all the time, but while our lack of object permanence may suggest otherwise, those things don't just disappear. They end up in someone else's yard. There's always someone else downstream. We don't see huge piles of garbage around most of the US, but in Asia and Africa, they do. Even plastic that we do put in recycling often ends up in a pit in places like Malaysia, because there's just too much of it to process, or there's a little food residue in it or something like that. In fact, folks in those so-called third world countries often make a living picking through mountains of refuse. They're essentially garbage miners. This sometimes includes kids. We even dispose of people. We do it all the time. Got an uncle with horrible political opinions? Cut him off. A celebrity said something offensive? Their career is ruined. A person has a mental illness or a disability and can't work? Tough luck, pal. Here's a piece of trash you can hold up as a sign on the side of the road. Getting rid of people doesn't solve the problem. It just makes it someone else's problem. The Catholic Church disposed of some abusive priests by simply reassigning them to churches in the Pacific Islands, where of course they continued their abusive patterns of behavior. The fact of the matter is there are people who do bad things. That's a fact, but there are more ways of addressing the problem than sweeping it under someone else's rug. Underneath any cultural behavior is a philosophy. Western culture is driven largely by Christian philosophy. Now, there are many types of Christian philosophy, but a major and influential one emphasizes the afterlife, heaven and hell, and de-emphasizes the material world, bodies, and non-human life. Here's an example. Back in 2020, an American pastor said, and this is a direct quote, "God intended us to use this planet, to fill this planet for the benefit of man. Never was it intended to be a permanent planet. It is a disposable planet. Christians ought to know that." Now, I know plenty of Christians who would disagree with this sentiment, as I do, as I know many of you do. Worldviews like this, which see the world as trash just waiting to be used and thrown away so that we can go to heaven, worldviews that treat people, plants, animals, and objects like tools to be tossed when their use has been fulfilled, is a foolish and even toxic way of life. Now, UUs try to be tolerant of all kinds of worldviews, but it is okay to have boundaries. It is okay to say, you know, that one's not okay with us, actually. It doesn't mean that the people who believe that are disposable, right? We're not going to extend that same worldview to them. Instead, it means that it's our duty to engage, to disagree, and to oppose. Opposing is not the same as disposing. I feel strongly that we can't deal with a problem unless we face it. So even though this is not one of my most cheerful sermons, I feel like it's really worth talking about. I chose this profession because I believe that there's something positive and world-changing in this thing we do on Sunday mornings called worship. That if we consider a problem together, we can imagine alternatives to these toxic, wasteful, hell-raising worldviews. That we can instead treat the world and all living beings as treasures. Someone asked me a few weeks ago if I, as an atheist, believe in an afterlife. Absolutely I do. Surprise. Actually, I know for a fact there's an afterlife. I might be the only one. You can see it right here in the Memorial Garden. Our bodies die and live again, endlessly, through countless forms, through streams of water, animals, plants, and even other people. In a way, we do have past lives. We do have future lives. Every molecule has had different experiences, has been a plant, a bird, a bug. Because, as the first law of thermodynamics teaches us, nothing is ever really created or destroyed, only changed. I've been here for about a month and a half, and I have been so happy and proud to see the ways that Oak Ridge UU Church already resists this culture of disposability. I don't think you all realize, but this is kind of a main thing that you do. Once a month, ORUC volunteers host a community meal called Stone Soup, where we feed anyone who comes in, no questions asked. Some of the food is donated from a grocery store that might otherwise have gone to waste. The volunteers make delicious meals and serve folks at their tables with dignity. Other volunteers help get fresh fruit from Second Harvest Food Bank and bring it to the public schools so that kids can go home with backpacks full of fruit for the weekend. We helped found and participate in the Ecumenical Storehouse, which you heard about earlier, that provides furniture and housewares to those in need. And of course, the rummage sale, where folks donate items of all kinds to be resold or donated. Rummage is this weekend, as you may have heard. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year, but not only that, I really feel it is one of the most notable acts this congregation does to resist disposability culture. And it's a way that we live our values for the whole community. There are tons of other ways that people are working to create sustainable systems outside of our congregation. You can try using washable handkerchiefs instead of tissues, menstrual cups instead of disposable period products, reusable cups and bottles for all. Some folks take things that are considered junk and create art out of them, like these tires with flowers planted. Some collect milk bottle caps to melt down and turn into park benches. Some are demanding legislation called right to repair, demanding that companies make their products repairable instead of intentionally unfixable. There are a few laws working their way through the Tennessee legislature right now about repairing farm equipment and wheelchairs. Every time the UU annual conference, called General Assembly, gathers in person, their incredible team of volunteers teaches each conference center how to be more sustainable. This is some of the GA Green Team leaders here, pictured. We leave these conference centers better than we found them. This year, in 2023, so the last GA we had in person, we were 100% carbon neutral. Pretty impressive. Big, it's a big conference. I don't know if you've ever been, but it's big. 100% carbon neutral, and only 32% of the waste generated at GA headed for landfills. Almost 70% was composted or recycled. The organizers post a sustainability report online after each GA with a lot more details if you're interested. And the person second from the left, that's Scott Weaver, who is actually a member of First UU Nashville. And he has been one of the leaders of the GA Green Team for like a decade. So yay, Tennessee UUs, making it work. In addition to resisting disposability with our materials, one of the most vital acts we can practice, one of the most important spiritual practices we can engage in, is resisting the disposal of other people. We need to try our best not to throw others away. When there is a conflict in a relationship, or a congregation, or a country, cutting others off instead of facing the disagreement is an example of disposability. It should be a last resort instead of a first reaction to discomfort. After all, there are lines where this needs to be done. There are boundaries. We do carefully dispose of, for example, material-wise, tumors or poison. There are things that do need to be disposed of. And we are within our rights to cut off abusive people. But even if one person needs to stay away from someone who's been abusing them, the community could do more to salvage and repair that person's behavior so that they don't go on to just harm someone else. We need to prioritize and give aid to those who've been thrown away all too often. Those with mental illnesses or disabilities are not mistakes to be crumpled up and tossed out. Our elders are not obsolete. They're not people who've completed their jobs and are now just thrown away. Elders are treasures of wisdom, of experience, of stories. Our culture practically incarcerates our elders, while more sustainable cultures venerate them. Universalist theology tells us that every single person is a living embodiment, a conscious part of our world, of our universe, and is held in a love that embraces all people. So someone else's suffering is our suffering, and we will flourish when they can too. During my first summer home from college, I stood up to a bully in my friend group from home, and as happens sometimes, the group decided to cut me off. This happens. I didn't understand it at the time, but sometimes the person who points out the problem ends up getting kicked out. I felt incredibly isolated and unwanted. I hit a serious rough patch and ended up needing medication and therapy for depression. But by the end of my sophomore year, I had joined a sorority, a group of friends who called each other sister. That's us after a flag football game. I don't know if we won or not, but we look pretty happy. We went through rough patches too, any group of young women, that's gonna happen. But when we needed each other, we showed up. They changed my life. When we root our spiritualities and worldviews in a love for this world, which is all one ecosystem, we can make it heaven. The earth is really good at turning death into life. We too can turn waste into fertilizer to regrow a garden of paradise. May it be so. May we make it so.